Hello everybody, my name's Vic Gilgis and I'm here today to help you with your well-being and my own. That's why I do these podcasts. This is podcast episode 34, the title being You've Got It, so shut up your face. Okay? Sorry about that. I'll explain what I mean by the title in a moment. First of all, I like to look at recent things during the week. And yesterday, I went to a meeting of a group of people who want to discuss well-being. Yeah, okay, and just one point from that is that there was a couple of people the group was of size about a dozen people. There was a couple of people, in particular I noticed, went on about the same thing that they'd been on about at previous meetings, and it related to some traumatic event in their life. And the point I'm making is that it was making them ill, and they still related to went through all the what happened and the whys and wherefores and how they felt about it and how they still feel about it. And all I can say about that is, I mean, none of us escape, having traumas and bad things happening and all the rest of it, as well as good things, of course. But we keep it alive every time we rehash it and go over it, and sometimes we add to it. And so that's all I could really say about that, is that that's what was going on. And it's a shame, really, because it left little time for any more light-hearted, progressive, moving on type of thought. Yeah, so I think these people were forgetting that in the moment they were okay up until that moment when they started going on about what had happened. And it's only natural to do that, but they were keeping it alive. And one of the things may be that keeps it less alive or allows it to fade more quickly. And sometimes things never do because they're so deep. But you don't always have to go there, because you can be doing other things with your thoughts and other things that occupy your thoughts. And so it's a shame, really, because it was making these two particular, they were women, ladies, ill. It was all sorts of symptoms were coming through them, and a lot of it is caused by this. Not all of it, of course, but it wasn't helping. And one of them in particular was in pain, and that must be terrible. I've experienced pain. We all have, and all I can say about that is that you can seek pain relief, and there are ways and to do that. There's advice and medication, and experts can help. But what doesn't help is the suffering that we can have because of that pain. What I mean by that is thinking about, this pain will last forever. It's come back again, it's etc., etc. So in actual fact, thinking about the pain, and sometimes because it's so intense, it's very difficult not to. But that is a point I would like to make, is that there is pain, and then there is the thinking about the pain, which causes even more suffering. So I'll stop preaching about that, because pain is a very difficult one. Right, now, so I'm going to, in the title there, you've got it, and shut up your face. Now, let me explain the context of this, because I'm going to talk about the rock and roll era. I was born at the back end of the war, so the Second World War, so 1944. So by 1957, rock and roll had certainly arrived, and I didn't know that because my father although he was an ambulance driver during the day, on a night time he was in Clubland. He was a compere, and it was good, pretty good. But his era was listening to ballads and light music, and there was a BBC, the home service, which just played light music and orchestral music and John Sylvester and all the rest of it. That's probably why I'm called Victor. I think I was called Victor because it was near the end of the Second World War. But it could have been because my dad was keen on Victor Sylvester and his orchestra. But where I lived, down the terrace, arrived a young lad my age, and his mother basically was not well, and he had to come and live with his granny for a while. And he was a little bit spoilt, and fair enough, because he had to live with his granny and not his mother. But he asked me to come and listen to some records one day because he had a record player. I didn't have a record player. And went, and he put on rock and roll, and he had some vinyl records, because that's what it was then. And he said, "Well, listen to this." And I listened to Little Richard. It blew my mind. It just opened my mind to a different genre of music or entertainment. And it wasn't so much, Elvis Presley had just about started then, but it wasn't so much Elvis Presley, it was people like Little Richard and Eddie Cochran and Buddy Holly, and he had their records. I could not believe what I was hearing. So I'm going to relate in particular, You've Got It, because that is the title of a song by Little Richard, and in the context of explaining that we've all got it when it comes to well-being, which I hope I can go on to explain, right? But what can I say? I would have played you a little bit of a little clip of Little Richard singing "You've Got It," but apparently it infringes copyright, so I can't do that. So I'm going to make my best attempt here at just singing, a few lines of lyrics of Little Richard, "You've Got It." It won't sound anything like it, and there's no backing, and I'm sorry about this, but I've got to do it. So, right. Big blue eyes, long black hair, dimpled cheeks, and she's no square, she's got it. Oh, baby, she's got it. Oh, baby, she's got it. I can't do without her. Her ruby lips, shapely hips. When she walks down the street, all the cats flip. She's got it. Oh, baby, she's got it. Well, when I heard that Little Richard singing the thing, I thought, that's fantastic. And of course, it was. It was a start of rock and roll. And I was so lucky to be around in those days. And the 60s, Tony Blackburn, I'll tell you all about this, was a happy era. Lively, zestful, creative. Now then, I'm thinking of all the things that I want to relate in terms of you've got it, I've got it, in terms of thought, mind and consciousness, which is thought, the ability to think, which is formless, it's a gift. Consciousness is the ability to be aware of the thoughts that we're thinking. So it puts like bells and whistles on the thoughts. So if you've got a happy thought, it puts bells and whistles on that. And like yesterday with those two particular ladies, which are sad and traumatic thoughts, it puts bells and whistles on them, because that's consciousness's job, to make it come alive. It's a brilliant gift, which unfortunately can be misused. It's there for good, it's there for bad. And we can't stop these things happening. We can't stop thinking, and we can't stop being conscious of those thoughts. But once we get a bad thought, Because the bells and whistles give us our bad feelings. We go, oh crikey, we're in a bad thought. And instead of exploring it and dwelling on it and ruminating on it and trying to solve it, is say, no, this can't do that. Leave it alone. Get out of, get out of this place. Anyway. So, and of course, that is consciousness bringing thoughts to life. And we've got mind, consciousness and thought, which is intelligent energy. So we have got it. We have got the equipment. And when I see what I forgot to mention at the beginning, really, around about that time, there was a film starring Little Richard called The Girl Can't Help It with Jane Mansfield. And there's another fantastic, The Girl Can't Help It. That's the introductory song to the film, with Jane Mansfield walking down the street on the pavements in America, waggling a figure about, I'm sorry. Anyway, and yeah, now I think it was Jane Mansfield, but it would be one of those blonde bombshells of the day who said, oh, one moment I was a young girl, and then the next minute I got the equipment. And basically, I couldn't stop but attract men buzzing around me because the equipment had arrived. And so what I'm telling you is that your equipment has arrived. It was there when you were born. Yeah, it was there. Oh, and it's been there all the time. It's there now. This mind, consciousness and thought, which are all one thing, really. It's just that basically we are aware of what goes on, and we have thoughts about what goes on, and consciousness brings those thoughts to life. But all the time in the background, we have got running mind, as I've said, mind, consciousness and thought, this intelligent energy always running through us. But so often we get stuck in thought and we forget what this, awareness, life energy can tell us. So that's what I want to start off with. That's why I'm saying in the title, you've got it, I've got it, you've got it. It's there all the time. It's a constant, never changes. And that's the thing. Something that's true never changes. It's always there. Oh, and man, consciousness and thought, which is formless, it's an energy, is always there. The thoughts that come out of that system, out of the ability of thought, the particular thoughts that come are of form. And they can be good, bad or indifferent. And even what we think is true 6 months later will seem not to be true. So in other words, they are not real. They are what we think is real at the time. They are come from our imagination, which can be do wonderful things, but also can kill us. So, right, so one of the things about this is that state of mind. I noticed yesterday, and I included myself, is that when I listened to some of these people, these two ladies in particular talking, and I felt a lot of empathy for them, because they were suffering. And I found out myself commiserating with them naturally, because we're human. And but I think I started sinking to their low mood. And when we're in a low mood, we see the world differently because we're looking through the lens of upsetness. And so that is a good thing to know, is that our mood can change. And at any time we can be in a low mood, a high mood, or in between mood. And it's good to notice that, because when we're in a low mood, the flow of mind, consciousness and thought is interrupted by the energies of a low mood. In other words, mind, consciousness and thought is an energy. And when it hits an obstacle like trauma, it bounces up against that because we are resisting the trauma instead of letting it pass through. The energy, we're blocking the energy in our body basically. And if you know about chakras and all that kind of thing, energy centers, then you'll understand this. So low moods block energy. And the nice thing about our system is that we have the awareness, which is through mind, when I talk mind conscious thought, through this intelligent energy, which picks up on a low mood and says, oh, you're in a low mood, mate, kind of be careful here, change the record. I mean, I've mentioned this before. My first record actually was Elvis Presley singing Hound Dog on one side and Don't Be Cruel on the other. And I wore it out. Don't be cruel, I thought was the better side. But my mother, she said to me, change the record. And that's sometimes what we need to do with our thoughts, which are habitual sometimes. And we start looping on a particular thought. We need to change those particular thoughts. And another, I mentioned this before, another thing my mother used to say to me, and it's a bit rude, so close your ears. She used to say, you've seen your backside and you don't like the look of it. And I often wonder what she meant by that. Well, I know what she meant by that. And what my mother was basically saying was, look, realise that you're in a low mood, son, and snap out of it. You've seen your backside and you don't like the look of it. Yeah, okay. Right. The thing that and what I'm saying there is that we can notice our thoughts. Because our thoughts are not us, that's why we can say we're having this thought. And if we can notice our thoughts, I think the clue is we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. Now, where's the observer? But it certainly isn't. We are not our thoughts. So think on that. So in other words, be very careful because it's like looking at a play that you're in and saying, oh, I'm playing the happy part or I'm playing a miserable part. You can always alter the lines. You can always come away from the play and rewrite the play. You have the choice to come out of a particular lineup of thoughts. And I do this particularly. And I mean, look, this morning when I first woke up, for some reason I was in a bad mood. But I noticed I was in a bad mood and I thought, right, I'm going to do something here. So I went and made a cup of tea and I forgot what I was thinking about in that sense. So, and I'm not saying you can stop thoughts. What I'm saying is that when we notice that we're thinking, we notice that there's something narrative going on that is not helping. It is this thing here. I've shown you this before. It's this thing. So there you go. It never stops. Go on. Oh, stop. Yeah. You wind yourself up. Okay. So now where are we? Yeah, we always assume a thought is true. No, it is not. We live in a thought-created reality. It's like we're in the Matrix. It's not true. It's what we assume. It's what we think is real. We think, I've said this, we think this, we think that. No. People used to think that the earth was flat. It isn't. We know that now. We started to realise that habitual thoughts that we have can harm us. And they are not true. They are what... through our eyeballs we think are true, but we must still always remember that we live in a thought-created reality, and it is not... We all have bad circumstances or good circumstances, but in actual fact, the world that we're living in is the world that comes through here, which looks at those circumstances, and it depends upon our take. And I've mentioned that right at the beginning, that these two ladies, their take was like... in other words, my mother would have said, change the record. And it's not easy to do. So, we give power to our thoughts. And it is a blind spot with us because we just naturally think our thoughts are us, and we naturally think our thoughts are true because the thoughts are coming from us. And so we believe what we think. And so we're believing that chattering thing there. It's making a commentary. And so what happens is life happens to us, and then it goes through, life happens to us first. And then seconds later, probably milliseconds later, this chatterbox comes in with a commentary on it. And all I'm saying is it's like watching a football game saying, oh, they're about to score. This is going good. This is going bad. Going from bad to worse. When you're on the pitch, you're the person that actually can make things happen in the now. The only time is in the now. This is always talking about the past and filtering it through, oh, isn't it? It's not going to work. We're 1-0 down, so we're bound, I mean, no. When you're on the pitch, you say, right, life, we're going to make it better because we're now here making it better. This is just a record machine, a narrative machine. So, got to remember, and I talked about a play earlier, we are creating the play. It's like, we're creating the film. Americans would say, we're creating the movie, enjoy the show. We are the ones that we are the director. We are the composer. We are the it. And so if we don't like the show, then it's our responsibility because we are in charge. We're the ones that have got mind, consciousness and thought, which is before form, which is before, when you see cartoons in a comic and you see bubbles coming out of the head, those are thoughts. But the ability to be able to think we have. So you can notice a bad thought and say, oh, there's a bad thought. Oh, crikey, better beware, because in actual fact, when I kind of stand back from that thought, then my intelligent energy will basically be able to be heard. So it's like hearing a gentle flute. Now you can hear it when you go quiet to this, but you can never go quiet to it when the brass band is playing in your mind. Okay, so another thing here is when you're trying to understand your depression. I'm depressed. Why am I depressed? She's made me depressed. He said that to me. They gave me a dirty look, etc., etc. What can I do about it? Now, I don't know who said this. They always say Albert Einstein says everything, or Sir Winston Churchill, but one of them said it, that a problem is never solved at the level at which it was created. And that's so true. In other words, what they're saying is that, when a problem arises and you're in a low state of mind, you are the problemer, as it were, then trying to solve it from that level with your head in your hands, tragedy, it's not going to happen until, as I've said earlier, you can recognise that, move away from that in terms of giving it less energy and attention. And that means that you open up the flow of mind, consciousness and thought, and that is where the wisdom comes from. That is where the intelligence, the knowing, and when I say knowing, it's kind of, it's not sometimes in words, it's just a quick thought or a tap on the shoulder. Don't go there, go there. Right, so things like, and Wayne Dyer used to talk about your erroneous zones. That was the title of his bestseller. And in that he had a chapter which was called The Useless Emotions of Guilt, Shame and Regret. And we're all human and we have those feelings. But when you look at those feelings of guilt, shame and regret, those type of things that we get, upsetness, those emotions that we get, try and go deeper and kind of look at that and say, well, I've got these bad feelings. Where are they? Whereabouts are they? Are they, And I think you'll find that you may have difficulty in finding out where it is in your system. In other words, what I'm saying is that where are they? Is they come from thought. And so if you want to keep on feeling guilt or shame or regret, etc., it will just, that's the word I was looking for earlier, algorithm. Computers, artificial intelligence, those things on your apps, they have algorithms. And so if you go looking for something sinister, well, how do I kill myself? It will tell you ways to do it. It will give you information on this. It will give you recordings that people have talked about how to do it. People that are depressed and want to talk about depression and suicide. In other words, the algorithm will find all that stuff for you, right? And this is what the brain can sometimes do. Oh, I know something about that, this misery. Let's explore it more. Why have I got the misery? Why is it getting worse? Will it ever stop? It's a self-perpetuating downward spiral. And the only way is to kind of realise that that is a situation that, and how could I put it? The mind is trying to help you here, but it's not helping really. It's trying to help you because it's trying to solve the problem. And as I've said, it created the problem in the first place. A problem is never solved at the level at which it was created. Okay, so another thing is analysis paralysis. In other words, the more you analyse something, the more you just paralyse your system. So instead of going out in the fresh air, getting some exercise, meeting different people, you're just stuck with analysis and you're paralysed, you're immobilised. That's no good. You're living in the matrix, basically. And so the energy that is coming through us, through mind consciousness and thought, is contaminated by low thoughts or resisted by low thoughts. It stops the flow. It's like imagining a stream with fresh water coming down, and all of a sudden there is something in the stream which doesn't look good, and what you would do is you scoop it up because this is what this will. Oh, why is that there? I wonder why that looks like a turd. Well, it is a turd. Why have I drunk any of this? No, there you go. In other words, you stop the flow and analyse why something went wrong. You're stopping life. You're blocking your awareness. You're getting your awareness to fixate on something that is bad instead of letting it flow where it can find the good. And so the good news and the bad news is that we are the thinker. And that is the good news. We can do something about it. We have the power to create a better experience. And only when we realise that the experience that this is giving us by looking at life, thinking about life, and then giving us the experience, the feel of something, is that when we basically are suffering from a bad experience, in that moment, realising that is that we have the power to create a better experience, to move away from the bad experience. So it's very important to know these things. You're not stuck really with the way in which you think about stuff. And so when we look at the modalities we have that therapists will use, there are hundreds. At latest count, 400 or 500, I don't know. But there is only one solution, really, and that is mind, consciousness and thought. In other words, saying that we are, before thought, mind, the energy, intelligent energy, and it's got our back. So that's all we need to know, really. It's simple, it's straightforward. You are not your thoughts. And stuff like cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, very helpful because it looks at what is your negative thoughts and tries to reframe them. But you've got to remember that it's still saying that giving validity to thought. No. No, you're before thought. I am spirit on legs. Remember that. That spirit is so powerful. When I say spirit, intelligent energy is so powerful. That's where your leverage is. So when you're coming at it from that angle, going quiet to the brass band and listening to the flute music, say, of mind, consciousness and thought, it sorts you. You get to know what to do. Okay? Now then, what can I say? This doesn't, well, it can happen overnight. Is it Michael Neal? I always mention him, one of my heroes. And Amy Johnson. They're all on the web, got free stuff, so look them up. Brilliant, brilliant. And I forgot what we're going to say now. Michael Neal. No. No, it's gone. Well, what I'll do then is Michael Neal. And so I was saying sometimes this stuff can take time, but Michael Neal told a story once where he said people are going to work taking this particular route that they've been taking for years, and then a new road is built, and one of the chaps who goes to the same workplace takes this new shortcut, this new road, and he gets there in less than half the time. And so he tells all the other colleagues, "Oh, this road, you'll get there in half the time." Now, so they try it, and that's it. In other words, once you know, you don't need to kind of take time to change. So some things, like Sydney Banks, when he had his epiphany on man, consciousness and thought, he didn't have to kind of think, oh, hang on a minute, let me just kind of, this is going to take a few weeks, days. He just knew. And that's when it's kind of an awakening, like in a ding. The bell rings, the penny drops, and sometimes it can be immediate, but not always. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of time for this intellect to go on snooze, for the real intelligence in the background there to say, oh yeah, and then to inform the awakening mind. That's why all of a sudden we remember things that we've forgotten, because it's always there in the background, and when our mind is clear, it comes through. And that's another point I keep mentioning, so I'll use one of my little things. When you shake up the snow globe, well, you still can see the little clown in the middle, but when we've got a busy mind, we can't think clearly. So stop all that lot. Right, so what I'm saying is that sometimes you get it, and sometimes it's difficult to get it. And I would say try the nursery slopes to build up your resilience against getting upset and letting trauma or fears take you over. Now, a couple of stories here is that when I was an academic, at one stage, I, as well as being an academic and lecturing and what have you, writing papers and research grants, I was the examinations officer for my department. So it meant that I had to process all the exam marks, get the average of the marks, and who got 2 1s and who'd got first and who'd passed and who'd failed and all the rest of it. I had to put all this on a spreadsheet. So, that's what I was doing. And at that particular time, the lecturers were not on strike. Well, they were on what was called a go slow, a working to rule. So instead of giving me, after they'd marked the exam papers when the students had taken their exams, instead of giving the marks to me straight away, the meeting was at 10 o'clock in the morning, the exam board meeting. And I mean, a lot of the lads were good. And there was ladies working there, gave me the marks earlier so I could process them. But some of them worked to rule, and not until 10 o'clock when the meeting started, and the meeting was in a different building. In them days, you had standalone computers, so I could not have been in that building with a computer device because that type of thing hadn't been invented then. So I'm on this kind of one in my office, and some not very nice or not very helpful people, but fair enough, they were working to rule. That was their opinion and their rights to do. Gave me the marks at the last minute. So at about 10:10, I'd finally got the marks in for everything. And in the office across the way where the professor was, there was the head of department as well. It sent, it was a young lady who I worked with actually, to come across and say, he'd said, go and tell Vic, we're all waiting for the exam marks. Go across and tell him. So she came across to me, and I'm busy putting the last things in. And she stood behind me, and she'd said, Vic, the boss has said, are you ready with the marks, you see? And at that particular moment, when she stood behind me looking at the computer screen, I pressed the wrong button or something, and all the marks went skew with all over the place. And I thought, oh, good God, what's happening? And then I thought, there's an animal in the room. There was like a whining going on. And I thought, what is it? And when I turned round, this young lady was crying. She was sobbing. And I said, what's the matter? And she says, well, she was so distraught and so stressed about it all. And I just said, I was saying it, nearly said her name. I said, stop it. Because look, calm down, keep calm and carry on. Because that was another message that I'd learnt from the war. Keep calm and carry on. In other words, even if it had all gone pear-shaped, all I could do would go back to the boss and say, well, everybody gave me the marks late. What do you, I can't work miracles. And so, but what I'm explaining is, and it was terrible for her, she'd been given a job to do, to G me up, get the marks in, and all she sees is rubbish on a computer screen, and she starts to worry about it and get upset about it. And I'll tell you what, I know for a fact that that young lady had a real bad weekend and couldn't sleep because of that event. It had traumatised her so much. Just think how much I've been traumatised. I'm all right though, honestly. So there's an example of how easily we can look, at the end of the day, we're not being shot in the head with these type of things. And, however old you are, you've got to say, up to this point, have I survived? Yes, you have. No matter what, you've had all these trials, you're still here. And look at it like that, I am here. And something has brought me to this point. And it's not my thinking. It's because we are not our thoughts. It is our ability to survive. We have resilience, but sometimes we forget it. So there's one example. And here's another example. Last week, I nearly lost the plot. What it was, I went away on holiday. Where did I go? Anyway, so coming back, I had Bulgaria. Coming back, I lost, there's a taxi supposed to be picking me up. My luggage was lost. It was 1 a.m. I was tired. I am a diabetic. My sugar levels were low because I'd not had any proper food. Been sat on this aeroplane for 3 hours, longer. And I kind of thought, and there's a taxi driver saying, I'm waiting in the airport car park. I have been over time now. I've had to pay and put money in the slot and etc., etc. Where are you? I know when the flight landed. I know the flight was late, but where are you? And basically, I'm stood waiting for the carousel and my case wasn't there. And I felt ropey. And all of a sudden, I thought, what do I do? What do I do? And in that moment, I nearly flipped out. But what I did do was I thought, no, you need help. And so I walked away from the conveyor belt to these hostesses, the airline people. I won't mention who they are, but they're very good. Particularly the fly jets, and they get you to somewhere. Okay. And I went up and said, I can't find my case. I don't feel very well. And in that moment, I thought, well, you can't do any more. You've tried. And all you're going to do by getting yourself in a stupor and kind of fretting about it is just make yourself ill and worry even more. And it's a vicious circle. And you know what she said to me? She says, well, don't worry. Go and sit over there. We'll go and find your case. What's your name? And so I just sat down and I thought, I can't do any more. I've tried my best. I'm not a youngster. Anyway, this young lady comes. I saw this back with a little scarf that they have, looking very attractive. We've got your case. I could not believe it. Now, how can I put it? Look, I know there's worse accidents at sea. In other words, I'm giving a very surfacey, not too difficult situation. It certainly wasn't like big trauma. But what I'm saying is that that's how we build up our resilience, by knowing that we're in a traumatic situation, that we've got to realise that we are, and stop kind of freaking out. And, the more that we do that, the more we build up our resilience. And in my case, it took me a while watching the carousel without my case on, listening to the taxi driver giving me an earful and kind of thinking, what can I do about this? What can I do about this? And kind of nearly having kind of a mental breakdown, realising, hang on a minute, Vic, you're breathing, you stood here, you're still alive. It's not the end of the world. This too shall pass, right? And so it did. And so, and a mate of mine, I used to travel with a particular friend of mine, a bit of a character. And sometimes things went wrong, and in them days, cars were forever breaking down, and we'd be stood by the roadside with a broken down car. He used to say to me, well, there's one thing, Vic, so long as I'm in the pub by 6 o'clock tonight, or we'll be in our beds tonight. And that's what he used to say. This will pass. We will be in our bed tonight. Now, look, I know sometimes we're not in our bed because somebody shoots us, the equivalent of. Life happens. But until then, why worry? And in other words, like I said, we're going to come to God dressed for dancing, as Haviz said, not to be carried to God's word on a stretcher. And I said that the other week. So I'm going to finish now. And I use a little quote here. Fear is telling us to shush, to settle, to let deeper intelligence come in. Well, that was one of the 3 principles practitioners giving that. And I forget the name, I'm sorry. And it's so true. Is that fear is another way of showing love by saying, I don't like this happening to you, but also it's a way of saying, just shush now, let this kind of calm down. Okay. So what I want to finish up on is, at the beginning, at the front, I went to Little Richard singing You've Got It. So at the end, I'm going to do Shaddup of your face. And it goes, so apologies here. What's the matter you? Hey, got no respect. What do you think you do? Why you look so sad? It's a not so bad. It's a nicer place. Shaddup of your face. That's what you want to be saying to this. Shaddup of your face. Shaddup of your face. Yeah. In the moment, you're always okay. So when all this starts with all this chattering, shut up of your face. Okay? You're okay now. You sat here listening to me. I love you. Hope that this has helped. Hope to catch you again. Thank you very much.